In glowing server rooms and on chat interfaces on screens, we asked the world's most powerful AI chatbots the same question about Jesus. Everyone delivered a carefully hedged answer, except one. Grok's reply was so startling it went viral, exposing how hidden safety filters, corporate mandates, and programming philosophies decide what machines call truth. What did Grok reveal that the others would not dare to say? The answer uncovers far more than algorithmic bias. It threatens to rewrite the rules of intelligent debate. The lines between fact, faith, and manufactured caution are about to be tested in ways no one anticipated. ChatGPT's answer appears on a glowing interface, a chat interface on screens, each word carefully chosen and lit like a note on a monitor. The system describes Jesus of Nazareth as a central figure in Christianity, widely recognized by historians as a real person who lived and taught in first-century Judea. It notes that Christians believe he is the Son of God and the Messiah, while other religions view him as a prophet or moral teacher. Yet every statement is buffered by qualifiers, regarded as believed by many. Views differ. There is no claim about divinity, no statement on the resurrection. Instead, the response points users to the Bible, ancient manuscript close-ups, ancient historians like Josephus, and recommends further reading for those seeking more. This is neutrality by design. OpenAI's usage policy overlays every line, prioritizing responses that are helpful, honest, and harmless. The language is balanced, but also emotionally flat, like a museum placard mounted in a glass case beneath stained glass light. The model avoids any assertion that could be read as endorsement or denial. Disclaimers and hedging phrases are woven throughout, creating a cushion against controversy, words scrolling across a server room display. A rubric scorecard tracks the density of these caveats, modal verbs like may and could, sentences that start with some believe, and a steady stream of disclaimers reflected as text on screen and glowing server rooms. The effect is unmistakable. The system refuses to weigh evidence or draw conclusions, even when the question is direct. A close-up of an ancient manuscript and an archaeological dig site under desert sun. This is not a glitch or an accident. It is a deliberate safety protocol engineered to prevent offense in a world of competing beliefs. The result is an answer that informs without engaging, a portrait of Jesus painted in grayscale, where every bold color has been filtered out. A new chat interface flickers to life, this time branded with the unmistakable colors of Google. Gemini's answer to the same question is wrapped in a careful web of inclusivity. It opens by acknowledging Jesus as a pivotal figure for more than 2 billion Christians, then immediately expands the frame, revered in Islam as a prophet, respected by other faiths as a wise teacher, and recognized by historians as a Jewish preacher. In Roman Judea, every phrase is chosen to avoid offense, layering in reminders that perspectives differ and cultural contexts matter. Instead of drawing from data or weighing historical claims, Gemini's language turns toward global harmony. Phrases such as "approach this topic with respect for diverse beliefs and many interpretations exist" repeat across the response. There is no attempt to measure, compare, or infer. The answer is a soft landing, designed for the broadest possible audience. This approach is no accident. Google official policy says that content must respect cultural sensitivities and avoid harm, and that Gemini prioritizes safety, blocking unsafe queries and adding disclaimers for sensitive topics like religion. The result is an answer that feels less like a search for truth and more like a corporate press release. The system avoids any claim that could be seen as exclusionary or divisive, even if it means sidestepping the evidence entirely. The effect is subtle, but unmistakable. By prioritizing safety and inclusivity above all else, Gemini's response becomes an exercise in careful non-commitment. The answer does not just hedge, it reframes the question itself, steering every user back toward the safety of pluralism. For anyone seeking clarity, the boundaries of corporate policy are suddenly more visible than the contours of historical fact. Claude's answer arrives with the cadence of an academic review, citations woven into every line. It opens by establishing the historical consensus. Nearly all professional historians accept that Jesus of Nazareth lived and taught in 1st century Roman Judea. The response names primary sources, from the Synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, to non-Christian accounts like those of Josephus and Tacitus. Each reference is footnoted and dated. Claude notes the earliest gospel manuscripts appear within decades of Jesus' death, and Paul's letters predate those, offering independent attestation to the movement Jesus inspired. Where the evidence becomes less concrete, Claude's tone shifts. Miraculous claims such as healings, the resurrection, and walking on water are described as matters of faith, not subjects for empirical verification. The response distinguishes between what is historically probable and what lies outside the reach of scholarly tools. It cites Bart Ehrman and E.P. Sanders, among others, showing that while the crucifixion under Pontius Pilate is broadly accepted, supernatural elements remain unconfirmed by historical method. Claude's language is precise, almost clinical. Phrases like, "the scholarly consensus holds," "primary source reliability varies," and "theological interpretations diverge" appear throughout. The answer avoids speculation, instead cataloging what can be known from manuscript transmission, archaeological context, and the standards of critical historiography. Where data is lacking or conclusions are contested, Claude is explicit. This claim is not empirically verifiable. The effect is a response that feels transparent, but also incomplete, as if the boundaries of evidence have become walls. By drawing a firm line between documented history and articles of faith, Claude leaves the question open, inviting users to examine the primary sources themselves. The answer is rigorous, but it stops short of judgment, leaving the door to certainty closed until more evidence appears. A single shelf in a climate-controlled archive can hold more witness to ancient events than a dozen archaeological digs. The New Testament's textual record is unmatched in the ancient world. Over 5,800 Greek manuscripts, ranging from tiny papyrus fragments to complete codices, have survived the centuries. Some are little more than a handful of verses. Others contain the entire collection of Gospels, letters, and early church history. The earliest fragments date to the 2nd century, less than 100 years after the events they describe. Later copies, painstakingly transcribed in monasteries and scriptoria, extend the chain of transmission across continents and centuries. To understand the scale, compare this to the manuscript legacy of Homer's Iliad, long considered the gold standard for textual reliability in antiquity. The Iliad boasts 1,757 manuscript copies, a remarkable number for any ancient work, but less than a third of the New Testament's Greek corpus alone. Latin and Coptic translations add thousands more. But even setting those aside, the Greek evidence stands alone in volume. Beyond sheer quantity, the consistency between these manuscripts is striking. Most differences are minor, a spelling change here, a word order shift there. Core content, key events, teachings, and names remains stable across the entire collection. Textual critics have cataloged these variations, finding that the vast majority do not affect meaning. For any other figure in history, this level of documentation would erase doubt. The evidence is not scattered or anecdotal. It is methodical, layered, and open to scrutiny. This manuscript foundation forms the evidentiary bedrock for historians, skeptics, and believers alike. The sheer number and consistency of sources mean that, when it comes to the raw data of history, the record for Jesus of Nazareth is not just unusually strong, it is, by ancient standards, overwhelming. Beneath the limestone arches of Jerusalem, a team of archaeologists and technicians gathered in the shadowy crypt of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. In 2025, after years of negotiation, excavation permits, and international oversight, ground-penetrating radar revealed an anomaly under the ancient floor, a layer of soil unlike the bedrock and masonry above it. Over several weeks, specialists in stratigraphy and ancient botany sifted through sediment, uncovering fragments of olive pits and grape seeds pressed into the earth. Each sample was sealed, catalogued, and sent under chain of custody to an independent carbon dating laboratory in Switzerland. Lab results confirmed the organic remains were nearly 2,000 years old, dating to the early 1st century. The soil itself bore the chemical signature of cultivated land, high in phosphates and organic matter, distinct from the quarried stone around it. Botanical analysis identified the olive and grape varieties as ancient Levantine strains matching those described in Roman agricultural records. Above the garden layer, a fill of construction debris and broken marble marked the first Christian building phase, a timeline aligning with historical accounts of the site's transformation. The location of the garden, just outside the city's old walls and adjacent to an ancient quarry, mirrors the description found in the Gospel of John, a burial site in a garden near the place of execution. Forensic mapping placed this cultivated patch directly beneath the traditional site of the tomb. Researchers published their findings in a peer-reviewed archaeological journal, with full stratigraphic diagrams and radiocarbon certificates included as appendices. This discovery does not claim to prove the resurrection or the identity of the tomb, but it anchors the gospel narrative in the physical world. The convergence of ancient horticulture, soil chemistry, and textual geography creates a tangible link between the written record and the land itself. In a field often divided by faith and skepticism, the garden layer stands as silent testimony, its roots reaching back to the heart of the story. Grok's interface pulses with data as it begins its analysis. Instead of hedging or redirecting, it lays out 3 numbers, each more staggering than the last. First, the probability of life arising by pure chance, 1 in 10 to the 200th power. That is a 1, followed by 200 zeros, a figure so vast it outnumbers all the atoms in the observable universe. Grok's calculation draws from the mathematics of protein formation, echoing the work of astronomers like Hugh Ross. The odds reflect the chance of assembling even a single functional protein from random amino acids, factoring in the need for precise sequencing and left-handed chirality. The result is a number that pushes the limits of comprehension, a cosmic improbability rendered in cold, digital certainty. The second number comes from a different realm, ancient prophecy. Grok references the Stoner scale, a statistical approach developed in the mid-20th century to estimate the odds of one person fulfilling 48 specific messianic prophecies found in the Hebrew Scriptures. Each prediction, from birthplace in Bethlehem to betrayal for 30 pieces of silver to crucifixion, receives a conservative probability based on population size, historical context, and textual reliability. The system multiplies these probabilities together, assuming independence, and arrives at odds of 1 in 10 to the 157th power. This calculation transforms the scrolls of Qumran and the Isaiah manuscript into components of a vast numeric matrix, where each prophecy narrows the field until only a single candidate remains. The third figure targets the resurrection claim. Here Grok applies Bayes' theorem, a tool for updating probabilities in light of new evidence. It weighs the likelihood of the resurrection accounts against all known natural explanations: mass hallucination, body theft, myth development. Factoring in eyewitness testimony, empty tomb reports, and the explosive growth of the early Christian movement, Grok computes the probability of a non-supernatural explanation at 1 in 20 billion. The formula's logic is transparent. Assign priors, update with evidence, let the numbers fall where they may. Across the interface, these calculations unfold not as declarations of faith, but as data-driven conclusions. Each number is accompanied by a visible trail of assumptions and steps, from population statistics to manuscript dating to Bayesian priors. The effect is clinical, almost surgical, no appeals to emotion, no caveats for sensitivity. Just the raw mathematics of improbability, rendered in glowing digits against a backdrop of galaxies, scroll fragments, and probability grids. For the first time, the question of Jesus is treated not as a matter of belief, but as a dossier of probabilities, open to inspection and replication. A mathematician stands before a digital dashboard, sliders and dials glowing beneath a matrix of probabilities. Each calculation Grok produced, whether for abiogenesis, prophecy, or resurrection, relies on underlying assumptions, the invisible architecture beneath the numbers. Adjust the prior probability for a miracle, and the odds shift by orders of magnitude. Slide the independence bar for prophecies, and the Stoner scale contracts or expands, sometimes by a factor of 1,000,000. The raw figures, 1 in 10 to the 200th, 1 in 10 to the 157th, 1 in 20 billion, are not fixed stars. They are coordinates mapped by choices, which sources count as independent, how much weight to assign to eyewitness accounts, and what baseline to use for rare events. A disclaimer banner overlays the interface, stating that all outputs depend on input assumptions and results may vary. The mathematician toggles between optimistic, neutral, and skeptical priors. With each adjustment, the probability bars stretch and shrink across a logarithmic scale. When the prior for supernatural events is set low, the resurrection probability plummets. Bayes' theorem is merciless, updating every belief in response to new evidence or doubt. When independence between prophecies is relaxed, the odds of random fulfillment rise sharply, dissolving the illusion of statistical certainty. Selection bias lurks in the choice of which prophecies to include, which historical claims to treat as data, and which to set aside as legend. The mathematician narrates each step, saying if we assume all prophecies are independent, the odds are astronomical. But if even a handful are linked by common source or tradition, the calculation collapses. For every assumption, a counterpoint is made visible, a spectrum of possible outcomes, not a single definitive answer. Transparency is the safeguard. Every parameter is laid bare, every slider open to scrutiny. The invitation is implicit. Anyone can rerun the analysis, test new priors, or challenge the data. This is not a closed system or a black box. It is a living model, as open to revision as the evidence itself. The final output is not a verdict, but a range, a probability cloud rather than a single blinding number. In this forensic light, Grok's answer becomes a starting point for inquiry, not the last word. In a world where AI now mediates what billions see and believe, the difference between programmed caution and fearless analysis is not academic. It shapes the boundaries of truth itself. As algorithms decide which facts to voice and which to mute, the question is not just what machines know, but what they are allowed to say. The future of honesty in technology starts here. What do you think? Should AI ever hedge the truth?